The moment Ward Reed's man recognized the maid in the burgundy dress at the Moretti wedding, Sarah Winters knew her 3 years of running were over. The man she'd witnessed committing murder had finally found her. And now the most dangerous mafia boss in the city was demanding to know why a killer was hunting the woman on his arm. Dante Moretti's grip tightened on her waist as his voice dropped to something lethal. "You have exactly 60 seconds to tell me who that man is and why you're terrified. Because if someone's threatening what's mine, they just made the last mistake of their life." Sarah's breath stopped. She'd spent years hiding from a murderer, and now she'd accidentally dragged a mafia boss into a war that could destroy them both. But to understand how a maid ended up in the crosshairs of two of the most dangerous men in the city, we need to go back 3 days, to the moment everything changed. The mansion was silent except for the distant sound of security walking through the marble halls. It was almost midnight and Sarah was finishing her last shift, trying to stay unnoticed the way she always did. She liked blending into the background. She liked being invisible. But tonight, invisibility was impossible. Dante stood in the doorway, still wearing the dark navy shirt and tailored pants from a meeting that had gone too late. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing strong forearms and a platinum watch that probably cost more than her entire year's salary. His dark hair was slightly tousled, his sharp jawline tense, and his piercing eyes were fixed on her with an intensity she had never seen on his face. "Miss Winters," he said, his voice low and commanding. Sarah's throat tightened. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Sir?" He studied her as if making a decision that could not be undone. "You," he repeated, stepping fully into the kitchen. "You're coming with me to my brother's wedding." Her breath caught. She had been wiping down counters, her dark hair tied in a simple bun, her uniform wrinkled from long hours, hands smelling faintly of lemon cleaner. She should not even be in the same room with him, much less in the middle of whatever this was. She placed the dishcloth on the counter carefully, afraid her hands might shake. "I think you're mistaken, Mr. Moretti. I'm just the maid." Cole Harper, Dante's right-hand man, was standing behind him, arms crossed, eyebrows raised in disbelief. Even he looked shocked. Dante stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "I am not mistaken." Sarah swallowed hard. "Why me?" His gaze swept over her slowly, not in a flirtatious way, but in a calculating one. She felt exposed, even though she still wore her simple uniform and worn shoes. "Every woman who wants to be on my arm," he said, "has an agenda." She blinked, confused. "I don't understand." "You don't want anything from me," he answered. "Not money, not power, not my name." His voice softened for a brief second. "You're the only person in this house who looks me in the eye without pretending." Sarah's heart hammered. She had never heard him speak this openly. She wasn't even sure he had a heart until now. But before she could think of a response, an elegant older woman walked into the kitchen. Isabella Moretti, Dante's aunt. She stopped immediately when she saw them. "Dante," she said carefully, "please tell me you chose a suitable date for the wedding. We cannot have people talking." He didn't look away from Sarah. "I chose her." Isabella followed his gaze, saw Sarah, and nearly dropped the crystal glass in her hands. "The maid?" she whispered, her voice full of disbelief. "You're taking the maid?" Cole coughed into his hand to hide a laugh. Sarah wanted to disappear into the floor. Dante nodded once, firm and final. "Yes, Sarah Winters will accompany me." "But she's staff," Isabella insisted. "And the people attending the wedding are—" He cut her off. "I don't care who they are." Sarah felt heat rising in her cheeks, embarrassment mixing with fear. She didn't belong in his world. She didn't belong in that conversation. Isabella tried again. Dante, you cannot be serious. Your date must reflect your status. You are the head of this family and this is my choice. His voice carried a finality that ended the discussion immediately. Isabella pressed her lips together and left the kitchen, visibly upset. Sarah took a shaky breath. Mr. Moretti, I really don't think. You're going, he said, lowering his voice. Unless you're refusing. Her breath stopped. Refusing him. Refusing the most feared man in the city. Refusing a man who could destroy lives with a single word. She could barely force her lips to move. I'm not refusing. I'm not sure why you want me there. He took one step closer. You make people underestimate you, he said. That's an advantage. And tonight reminded me that I want someone beside me who doesn't lie to my face. She felt something heavy and warm twist inside her chest. No one had ever described her as someone worth choosing. Not once in her entire life. Sarah looked down at the floor, searching for air. I've never been to a wedding like yours. I don't know how to act around people like that. I don't have the right dress or... That will be handled, he interrupted. You won't go in your uniform. She nodded slowly, still confused, still overwhelmed. Cole stepped forward. Boss, are you sure? She'll be surrounded by press, politicians, business elites. My decision is final, Dante said. Sarah's stomach dropped. This felt wrong, dangerous even. Being close to Dante Moretti could put anyone in danger, especially someone like her, who carried secrets she barely understood herself. She rubbed her fingers together nervously. Why me, Dante? It was the first time she had ever said his first name. His eyes flickered with something unreadable. He leaned in slightly, his voice low and controlled. Because every other woman sees power and money. You're the only one who sees the man standing in front of you. She felt that sentence deep inside her bones. Cole cleared his throat. Sarah, you should probably get some rest. Tomorrow will be intense. Tomorrow. The wedding. Walking beside the most feared Mafia boss in the city. Sarah wasn't sure if she wanted to cry or run or hide. Dante turned away from her as if the topic was settled forever. Be ready at 7:00 a.m. A driver will pick you up. And Sarah, he added. She looked up quickly. When you walk into that wedding on my arm, he said, eyes sharp and serious. You're under my protection all night. Everyone will know that. Her breath trembled. Okay. He nodded once and left the kitchen with Cole behind him. The moment the door closed, Sarah's legs gave out. She sat at the small staff table and pressed a hand to her shaking chest. Protection. His world. His arm. She didn't fully understand what that meant, but she understood enough to be afraid. What Sarah didn't know was that accepting Dante's protection would drag a secret from her past into his dangerous present. And that secret had a name. Ward Reed. Breathing unevenly, she walked to the staff quarters and pulled open her small locker. Hidden behind her extra uniform was a photograph she kept from a different life. A different city. A different version of herself. A photograph that showed her with different hair, a different name. Emily Carter. And in the background, blurred but unmistakable, was the face of the man who had been hunting her for 3 years. Ward Reed. She stared at it with wide, tense eyes. If someone recognized her at that wedding, if someone remembered what happened, if anyone connected her to the man she once ran from, everything could fall apart. She closed the locker with trembling fingers. Tomorrow, she would walk into a world where she absolutely did not belong. Tomorrow, every eye in that room would be on her, and she had no idea what Dante Moretti had just dragged her into. But one question echoed through her mind as she finally headed toward her small bedroom. What exactly did being under his protection mean? And what price would she have to pay? The answer to that question would come faster than she imagined, and it would cost more than either of them expected. Sarah barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dante standing in the kitchen doorway, his voice echoing in her head. "When you walk into that wedding on my arm, you're under my protection." She didn't understand his world. She didn't understand his reasons. But she understood one thing. There was no way back. By 6 a.m, she was standing in front of the small mirror in the staff bathroom, still in her uniform, hair tied up, dark circles under her eyes. Nothing had changed on the outside, but inside everything felt different. At 7 sharp, a knock came at her door. Cole Harper stood in the hallway, checking his watch. "You're ready?" Sarah grabbed her small bag. "I don't think I'll ever be ready for this." Cole's expression softened slightly. "You'll be fine. Just follow instructions." The black SUV waited at the staff entrance. Sarah climbed in, her heart pounding as the city flashed by the windows. 20 minutes later, they stopped in front of an upscale penthouse building downtown. Inside the elevator, Cole pressed the top floor. "Boss wants everything perfect." "Perfect for Dante Moretti's standards is terrifying," Sarah whispered. What Sarah was about to experience would transform her from invisible to unforgettable. But that visibility would come with a deadly price. The elevator opened to a massive penthouse filled with natural light, polished floors, ivory furniture, and windows overlooking the city. A woman in her 40s, stylish and confident, walked toward Sarah with a warm smile. "You must be Sarah," she said. "I'm Vivian Cross. Dante called me personally. We're going to take excellent care of you today." Sarah wanted to hide. "I really don't think I belong." Vivian stopped her gently. "I know who you are, and I know what's happening tonight. Listen to me, Sarah. You're not just anything. Not for tonight." 2 assistants appeared and guided Sarah to a large dressing room. She tried to protest, but Vivian was already assessing her with professional eyes. The first step was hair. They undid her bun and let her dark hair fall. Sarah didn't recognize the weight of it. They applied treatments, brushing, curling, styling. Slowly, the transformation began. "You have beautiful hair," Vivian said. "You should wear it down more often." Next came makeup. Soft tones, eyes highlighted, skin glowing. Sarah stared at her reflection, almost frightened by the woman looking back. Then Vivian stepped aside and revealed the dress. A stunning burgundy gown hung on a golden rack, the fabric rich and luxurious. Sarah's breath vanished. "I can't wear that." Vivian smiled. "Oh yes, you can. Dante picked the color himself." Sarah's stomach twisted. "He picked it?" "He said he wanted you to be unforgettable." As the fabric slid over Sarah's skin, she felt the world tilt. The dress was strapless, elegant, with a fitted bodice that hugged her waist and a skirt that fell in a smooth, flawless line. It was bold. It was beautiful. It was everything Sarah never dared to be. When the zipper closed, she almost didn't recognize herself. A knock came at the door. Cole's voice. "Vivian, is she ready?" Vivian opened the door. Cole froze mid-sentence, his eyes widening. For the first time since Sarah met him, Cole Harper was speechless. Vivian smirked. "I'll take that as approval." Cole cleared his throat. "The boss is here." Sarah's heart stopped. They rode the elevator down. Outside, another SUV waited, and standing beside it was Dante Moretti. Black suit, crisp white shirt, tie perfectly knotted, hair styled, eyes sharp and unreadable. He was intimidating on any normal day, but today, he looked untouchable. Sarah froze on the sidewalk. Dante walked toward her slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. When he finally stopped in front of her, his jaw flexed. He reached out and adjusted a strand of her styled hair with a slow, deliberate touch. "You look exquisite," he said, his voice lower than she expected. Sarah couldn't breathe. "Thank you." He offered his hand. "Ready?" "No," she admitted. He smiled faintly. "Good. I don't trust people who walk into danger without fear." Inside the SUV, their shoulders almost touched. The tension was suffocating. Sarah looked at her hands to hide her shaking. "Why burgundy?" she asked softly. Dante turned his head toward her. "Because burgundy is bold without being desperate, confident without trying. And tonight, no one will look at anyone else." Her heart skipped. He leaned closer. "You stay on my arm. You don't talk to anyone alone. You don't leave my side." His voice softened slightly. "I will not let anything happen to you tonight." "Why?" she whispered. A long silence. Then, "Because I chose you." Dante's promise of protection was about to be tested in the worst possible way. Because someone from Sarah's past was already at the wedding. Waiting. The SUV approached the luxury venue. Cameras flashed outside. Guests turned their heads. Dante offered his hand once more. "Sarah." She took it. He stepped out first. Tall, powerful, commanding. Then he helped her out. And as her burgundy dress touched the ground, the entire entrance went silent. Whispers erupted instantly. "Who is she? That dress? Is that the maid?" Dante Moretti brought a woman. Dante placed his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the stunned crowd with confidence and possession. Sarah could hardly breathe. She was just a maid yesterday. But tonight, she was the woman walking on the arm of the most dangerous man in the city. If this moment hit you the way it hit me while writing it, a maid being chosen by a mafia boss, stepping into a world that wants to reject her, take a second to subscribe. It tells me you want more stories about people who refuse to stay invisible, who fight systems designed to keep them small. Comment where you're watching from and tell me, would you have taken Dante's hand, knowing the danger it might bring? The moment Dante and Sarah stepped through the golden doors, the ballroom fell silent. Crystal chandeliers hung from above. A long aisle stretched toward an altar adorned with white roses. Guests in expensive suits and designer gowns turned toward the entrance, and every single one of them stared at her. Sarah felt exposed, fragile, wrapped in the burgundy gown that clung to her in ways she wasn't used to. Her heartbeat thumped so hard she felt it in her fingertips. But Dante's hand remained firm on the small of her back, guiding her with confidence that cut through the noise. He didn't rush. He didn't look embarrassed. He walked proudly beside her. A man in a tailored gray suit leaned toward his date and whispered, not quietly enough, "Is that the maid from the Moretti mansion?" Sarah tried to look forward, but Dante slowed his pace just enough to glance at the man. One look. Cold. Sharp. Final. The man straightened in fear and looked away. "Don't listen to them," Dante murmured near her ear. "I'm trying," she whispered, her voice cracking. "You're doing fine." They reached the entrance of the main hall. From inside, soft music and laughter echoed. Dante nodded to the guard at the door, who immediately opened it. The ballroom was enormous. Rows of tables with white linens and gold centerpieces. Waiters passing with champagne. A flower arch framing the dance floor. Hundreds of guests turned their heads toward them. Sarah felt their judgment like heat on her skin. But Dante didn't flinch. He walked slower, intentionally, making everyone look. She could hear people whispering behind their hands. "Who is she?" A date? She must be someone important. No, that's the maid. The maid? What is he thinking? A few phones lifted discreetly to take pictures. Dante's hand slid from her back to her waist, pulling her closer. Eyes up, he said softly. Don't shrink yourself in front of them. Her chest tightened, but she forced herself to raise her chin slightly. Dante noticed and nodded in approval. They continued walking until Lucas Moretti, the groom, spotted them. Lucas broke into a wide grin and walked toward them with open arms. "Dante!" he called out, pulling his brother into a quick embrace. Then Lucas stepped back and looked at Sarah. He froze. "Is this Sarah from the mansion?" Sarah nodded, embarrassed. "Yes." Lucas blinked, then shot Dante a look full of mischief. "You really know how to make an entrance." Dante ignored him. A man in an elegant cream suit approached. Sebastian Castillo, Lucas's partner. He smiled warmly at Sarah. "You look absolutely stunning tonight. I'm so glad you came." Sarah felt her shoulders relax just a little. "Thank you. This is all very overwhelming." "Everything about this family is overwhelming," Sebastian said with a laugh. A woman in a dark green dress walked by slowly, eyes narrowed. "Is this really your date, Dante?" she asked with a fake smile. Dante didn't even turn his head. "She's exactly who I chose, and that's all anyone needs to know." The woman swallowed her words and quickly disappeared into the crowd. Sarah exhaled shakily. Dante leaned down. "You're doing better than half the people here." "Am I?" she whispered. "Yes, you're with me. That alone terrifies them." The night unfolded like a test she wasn't prepared for. Wherever they walked, the crowd split, unsure whether to greet Dante or avoid him. At one point, Dante stepped away briefly to speak with Lucas. Sarah stood near one of the tables, trying to breathe normally. A middle-aged couple approached her. Patricia and Richard Westwood. "So," Patricia said, sipping champagne. "How long have you and Dante been involved?" Sarah choked on her breath. "Oh, we're not... I don't..." Richard laughed, amused. "Don't worry, dear. Everyone knows Dante doesn't bring women to events unless they mean something." Sarah froze. Before she could respond, a firm hand wrapped around her waist from behind. Dante. He pulled her back against him subtly, but possessively. "We're leaving this conversation," he said coldly. The couple stepped back immediately. Sarah looked up at him, embarrassed. "I was trying to be polite." "You don't owe anyone here politeness," he replied. "If someone approaches you, you come find me." "That's not realistic in a room full of..." "It is," he interrupted. "If I'm not beside you, you wait until I am." His tone wasn't harsh. It was protective. Too protective. Sarah nodded, though confusion twisted inside her. What Sarah didn't realize was that Dante's overprotective instincts were about to be proven right. Someone in that ballroom was watching her with dangerous recognition. Dante led her to the dance floor as the music softened. Couples moved toward the center. He stopped in front of her, extending his hand. "Dance with me." Sarah stared at his hand. "I don't know how. Not like this." "You'll learn in 10 seconds." She hesitated, but placed her hand in his. He guided her gently to the center of the floor. His other hand settled on her waist, warm through the fabric of her dress. Their bodies drew closer than she expected. Her breath hitched. He leaned in just enough for only her to hear. "Don't look around. Look at me." So she did, and suddenly the room blurred. He moved with certainty, leading her with minimal effort. She followed, trusting his rhythm, letting him guide her through the crowd of spinning lights and judging eyes. "See?" he said quietly. "You're fine." "I'm shaking." "I know." The honesty in his voice surprised her. "You're not used to people looking at you," he continued. "But they're not looking at you the way you think." "How then?" she asked. He stared at her for a long second. "They're wondering how I found someone who doesn't belong to this world." Sarah felt that in her bones. "Is that good or bad?" she whispered. "For me," Dante said slowly, "it's dangerous." Her lips parted, confused. But what happened next would shatter the illusion of safety Dante had built around her, and force Sarah to confront the past she'd been running from. But before he could answer, Sarah noticed something over his shoulder. A man standing alone by the bar, watching her. He wasn't drinking. He wasn't talking. He wasn't even pretending to be there for the wedding. He just stared. Not with curiosity, but with recognition. Her chest tightened. Her breath stopped. It couldn't be. No. Not here. Not tonight. Dante instantly felt the shift in her body. His hand tightened on her waist. "What is it?" Sarah swallowed hard. "I think someone is looking at me." "Everyone is looking at you." "Not like this," she whispered, terrified. Dante turned subtly, scanning the room with trained precision. His eyes locked onto the man near the bar. Sarah felt the air freeze. "Who is he?" Dante asked, voice dropping to a dangerous low. Sarah's voice trembled. "I don't know his name, but I've seen him before." "Where?" Sarah looked at him, panic rising. "He works for Ward Reed." Dante's jaw clenched. He didn't finish the dance. He didn't say goodbye. He didn't wait. He took her hand, led her off the dance floor, and signaled Cole with a sharp look. Cole moved instantly. Sarah felt her legs shaking. "Dante, I'm scared." He didn't hide his expression now. His eyes were fire. "You're with me," he said. "And if that man is connected to your past..." He took a breath, steady but furious. "Then we have a much bigger problem than gossip." Dante didn't let go of Sarah's hand until they were outside, away from the ballroom, away from the cameras. Thomas Grant already had the SUV running. Cole appeared seconds later, scanning the perimeter. "Get in," Dante ordered. Sarah climbed into the back seat, her burgundy dress bunching around her legs. Dante slid in beside her and slammed the door. "Drive. Now." Thomas didn't ask questions. The SUV pulled away fast, tires screeching slightly on the pavement. Inside, the silence was crushing. City lights flashed by the windows. Sarah stared out, trying not to cry. The truth Sarah had been hiding for 3 years was about to come out, and Dante's reaction would determine whether she survived the night. After a full minute, Dante finally spoke. "Sarah." "Yes." "Tell me what you're running from." Her breath stuttered. "Not yet." She wasn't ready. She had spent years hiding this, years surviving by silence. "Dante, please." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "You think I'm asking for curiosity. Sarah, that man at the bar wasn't drinking. He wasn't socializing. He was watching you, studying you, reporting to someone." She closed her eyes. "Is it Ward Reed?" he pressed. Her hands shook. "Yes," she finally whispered. Dante's jaw clenched so hard she thought he might crack a tooth. "I knew Reed was moving lately," he muttered. "But I didn't expect him to show his face at a family wedding." "He wasn't alone," Sarah said, voice shrinking. "If he sent that man, Ward knows where I am." Dante turned to Cole. "Drive faster." "Yes, boss." When they finally reached the mansion, Dante didn't wait. He escorted her inside through a private entrance. No staff, no guests, no one around. He guided her into his private office, a room she had never entered before. Dark walls, a massive desk, bookshelves, a window overlooking the city. He shut the door behind them. Sarah stood in the center of the room, feeling small under his gaze. Dante stayed near the door for a moment, one hand on the handle. He took a slow breath like he was containing something violent inside. "Sit," he said. She sat. Dante walked around the desk slowly and leaned forward, placing both hands on the polished surface. His eyes didn't leave her. "Start talking." Sarah clasped her hands together, trying to stop them from shaking. "I moved here 3 years ago," she said carefully. "I changed cities, jobs, everything. I was trying to disappear." "Disappear from who?" he asked. "Ward." Dante's jaw tightened again. Sarah continued. "I wasn't involved with him. Not romantically. Nothing like that." She rushed the explanation. "I didn't know who he was at first. I worked at a small restaurant. He came in a few times. He was charming, generous. I didn't see the danger." Dante's expression didn't change, but his hands curled into fists. "One night," Sarah whispered, "I stayed late to close, and I saw something I shouldn't have." "What did you see?" Dante asked. What Sarah said next would change everything, and force Dante to make an impossible choice between his empire and the woman he'd sworn to protect. Sarah took a shaky breath. Ward and 2 men were in the alley behind the restaurant. They were beating someone. "I don't know who he was, but—" Her voice cracked. "Ward killed him. Right there. I saw everything." Dante's eyes narrowed slowly. Sarah looked away. "They didn't see me at first, but someone yelled and I panicked. I ran. I called 911 from a payphone 2 blocks away. The next morning, the police showed up at the restaurant asking questions." "And Ward?" Dante asked. "Ward confronted me 2 days later," she said quietly. "He wanted to know what I saw. He wanted to know if I talked. I told him I didn't, but he didn't believe me." Dante exhaled through his nose, furious but controlled. "He started following me," Sarah continued, "calling me, showing up at my apartment. I moved twice. Then I left the city completely." "And you thought running would be enough?" Dante asked. Sarah nodded, ashamed. "I thought if I disappeared, he'd forget. I took the job at your mansion because it was stable and far away from everything. I wanted peace." Dante leaned back slowly. "Sarah, Ward Reed doesn't forget." Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes. "I know." "And you kept all of this from me," he continued, his voice harder now. "I was afraid," she whispered. "Of me?" he asked sharply. She looked down. "No, I was afraid of bringing trouble to your home, to your people, to you." Dante stared at her for several long seconds. Then, unexpectedly, he stood. He rounded the desk and stopped directly in front of her. "Stand up," he said softly. Sarah rose slowly, her legs trembling. He reached out and gently lifted her chin, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You think your past makes you dangerous to me?" he asked. She didn't answer. "You think Ward Reed scares me?" he continued. She remained silent. His voice dropped lower. "Sarah, there is nothing you could tell me that would make me walk away." She blinked, tears escaping. "And you should have told me," he said. "Not because I'm angry, but because I could have protected you sooner." She sobbed quietly, covering her mouth. He lowered his hand to her waist, not pulling her close, just grounding her. "No more secrets," he said. "Not from me." Sarah nodded helplessly. Dante stepped even closer. His breath touched her cheek. "You're in my world now," he said. "And in my world, we don't run from threats." Her heart raced. We eliminate them. Sarah didn't sleep that night. Dante had moved her to a guest room in his private wing, luxurious, secure, and monitored. Victor Stone stood guard outside her door. Every sound made her jump. What Sarah didn't know was that while she tried to sleep, Ward Reed was already making his next move. And he had allies Dante hadn't anticipated. For 3 days, she lived in a strange limbo. Security doubled throughout the mansion. New cameras appeared in hallways. Patrol schedules changed. And Sarah was no longer allowed to work. Margaret Sullivan, the head housekeeper, had looked at her with a mixture of sympathy and confusion. "Mr. Moretti's orders," she'd said quietly. "You're not staff anymore." Sarah didn't know what she was now. On the 4th day, Dante summoned her to his office. When she entered, she found Nina Chen sitting at a laptop, surrounded by monitors displaying code, files, and surveillance footage. Nina looked up, her sharp eyes assessing Sarah. "Sit down. We need to talk about your digital footprint." Sarah sat nervously. "My what?" "Everything you've done for the past 3 years," Nina explained. "Every credit card purchase, every social media account you thought you deleted, every employment record. Ward Reed has been tracking you systematically." Sarah's stomach dropped. "How?" Nina pulled up a screen. "He hired someone good, not as good as me, but good enough. Look." The screen showed a timeline. Sarah's movements from city to city, job to job, apartment to apartment. It was all there. Every attempt she'd made to disappear, cataloged and traced. "He's been waiting," Nina said. "Watching. Probably hoping you'd lead him to something bigger. Or maybe he just wanted you scared." "It worked," Sarah whispered. Dante stood near the window, arms crossed, jaw tight. He'd been listening without speaking, but Sarah could feel the fury radiating off him. "There's more," Nina continued. "Ward's been making moves lately. Political connections, financial transfers. He's building something." "Building what?" Sarah asked. "Protection," Dante answered, his voice cold. "He knows what he did. He's been preparing for the day someone comes after him." Cole entered the office without knocking. "Boss, we got something. An intrusion attempt on our security systems last night." Dante turned sharply. "From where?" "Government building downtown. Congressional offices." The room went silent. "Ward has political protection," Dante said slowly. "Or he's paying someone who does," Cole replied. The threat was bigger than either of them realized. Ward Reed wasn't just a murderer. He was connected to people who could destroy Dante's entire empire. Sarah felt like she couldn't breathe. "This is my fault. I brought this into your—" "Stop," Dante interrupted, his voice firm. "You didn't bring this. Ward did. And he made a mistake coming after someone under my protection." Later that evening, Dante found Sarah on the terrace, gripping the railing, staring out at the city lights. He approached quietly and stood beside her. "Tell me about that night," he said. "The night you witnessed the murder." Sarah's hands tightened on the railing. "It was raining. I remember that. I was supposed to leave at 9, but the manager asked me to stay late because someone called in sick." Dante listened without interruption. "I took the trash out to the alley around 11. That's when I saw them. 3 men. Ward was in the middle. The other man, the one they were beating, was on his knees, begging." Her voice cracked. "Ward pulled out a gun. He said something I couldn't hear. Then he shot him. Twice. The man fell. And Ward just stood there, calm, like it was nothing." Dante's knuckles were white where he gripped the railing. "I dropped the trash bag," Sarah continued. "It made a noise. One of the men turned and saw me. I ran. I've been running ever since." "What happened to the people who helped you?" Dante asked quietly. Sarah closed her eyes. The restaurant owner who let me hide in his office that night. His business burned down 6 months later. The neighbor who lent me money for a bus ticket, her car was vandalized, windows smashed. My friend who let me stay on her couch, her apartment caught fire. Everyone who helped you paid a price, Dante said. Yes. And you think you're cursed. Sarah nodded, tears falling. I think I bring destruction to people who care about me. Dante turned to face her fully. He reached out and wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Then let me be destroyed, he said, because I'm not letting you go. Sarah's breath caught, but the choice to protect Sarah wouldn't just risk Dante's life. It would force him to face the one thing he'd built his entire empire to avoid: vulnerability. Before she could respond, Cole appeared in the doorway, his expression urgent. Boss, we have a problem. Nina just flagged another intrusion. Whoever's trying to access our systems isn't giving up. Dante's expression hardened. Trace it. I want to know who's on Ward's payroll. Already working on it, Cole said. Dante looked back at Sarah. Stay close to me. Don't go anywhere without Victor or Cole. Dante. I mean it, Sarah. This isn't a request. She nodded, fear and something else. Gratitude, maybe, washing over her. As Dante walked back inside with Cole, Sarah stood alone on the terrace, realizing that for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't running. She was standing her ground. And she wasn't alone. If you're feeling what I felt writing this, watching someone finally choose to stop running, finally finding someone willing to stand with them against impossible odds, hit that like button. Because this story is about more than a mafia boss and a maid. It's about refusing to let fear win. It's about standing up to the Ward Reeds of the world, those who think power gives them the right to silence witnesses, to terrorize the vulnerable, to make people disappear. Comment below. What would you do if you witnessed something you shouldn't have? Would you run, or would you fight? The message arrived 2 days later. Dante was in his office reviewing security protocols when his phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. We need to talk. About the girl. Tonight. Pier 17. Come alone. WR. Dante stared at the screen, his jaw clenching. Cole, standing nearby, saw his expression. What is it? Dante handed him the phone. Cole read the message and swore under his breath. Ward Reed. He wants a meeting, Dante said. It's a trap. Obviously. You're not going. Dante's eyes were cold. Yes, I am. What Dante was about to walk into would force him to make the hardest choice of his life: his empire, or the woman who made him feel human again. Cole stepped forward. Boss, if you walk into that— I'm not handing her over, Dante interrupted. And if Ward thinks he can threaten me on my own territory, he needs to understand what happens when he crosses that line. Then I'm coming with you. No, you stay here with Sarah. If something happens to me, you get her out of the city. Understood? Cole hesitated, then nodded. Understood. Dante found Sarah in the library, reading, or pretending to. Her hands shook slightly as she turned pages. She looked up when he entered. Is something wrong? Ward wants to meet. Her face went pale. When? Tonight. No, Sarah said, standing abruptly. No, you can't go. It's a trap. I know what he'll try, Dante said calmly. Then why are you going? He stepped closer. Because this ends tonight, one way or another. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Why risk everything for me? Dante reached out and cupped her face gently. Because every other woman sees power and money. You're the only one who sees the man standing in front of you. Her breath trembled. I've walked into traps before and walked out, he continued. But this time, I'm not just protecting myself. I'm protecting you. Dante. He leaned his forehead against hers briefly. Trust me. I do, she whispered. That's what scares me. That evening, Dante left in a single SUV with Victor driving. Sarah watched from the window of Dante's office, Cole standing beside her like a silent sentinel. He'll be fine, Cole said, though his voice lacked conviction. You don't believe that? I believe he's the most dangerous man I've ever met. And Ward Reed just made the mistake of threatening what's his. At Pier 17, Ward Reed was about to learn what happens when you threaten a Moretti, but he had one card left to play that could destroy everything. At Pier 17, the abandoned nightclub was dark, lit only by a few flickering streetlights. Dante stepped out of the SUV, his movements calm and controlled. Ward Reed stood near the entrance, flanked by two armed men. He was older than Dante expected, mid-50s, graying at the temples, wearing an expensive coat. Moretti, Ward said, his voice smooth. I'm impressed. You actually came. You wanted to talk. Talk, Ward smiled. Straight to business. I like that. He gestured to the building. Shall we? Here's fine. Ward shrugged. Suit yourself. This won't take long anyway. He pulled out a phone and played an audio recording. A woman's voice. Young, terrified, panicked. Sarah's voice. There's been a murder. Behind the restaurant on 5th. Please, someone needs to come. He killed him. Oh God, he killed him. Ward stopped the recording. Recognize that? Dante's expression didn't change. That's your maid, Ward continued. Emily Carter. Or Sarah Winters. Whatever name she's using now. She made a 911 call 3 years ago, gave her name, her location, everything. And? Dante asked coldly. And she's a witness to a crime I'd rather stay buried, Ward said. I've been looking for her for years. Imagine my surprise when I see her at a Moretti family wedding, dressed like a princess. On your arm. Get to the point. Ward's smile faded. The point is, she's a problem. For both of us. If she talks, if she testifies, I go down. But I've also been collecting insurance, photos, documents, evidence of your operations. If I go down, I'm taking you with me. He pulled out a folder and tossed it at Dante's feet. That's a sample. I have more. Much more. Stored safely. If anything happens to me, it goes straight to the FBI. Dante looked at the folder but didn't pick it up. So here's my offer, Ward said. You hand over Sarah. I handle the problem quietly. In exchange, I keep my mouth shut about your empire. Everyone walks away. This was the moment that would define Dante Moretti. Would he choose power? Or would he choose the woman who made him feel like more than a throne? Dante was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed. Cold, sharp, without humor. You think I'm afraid of you? Ward's eyes narrowed. You should be. You come to my city, you threaten someone under my protection, and you think I'll just hand her over? I think you'll make the smart choice, Ward said. Your empire or a maid. Seems pretty simple. Dante stepped forward, his voice dropping to something lethal. Let me make this very clear. Sarah stays with me. If you come near her again, if you even think about her, I will personally make sure you regret the day you were born. Ward's smile returned. You're willing to lose everything for a girl in a burgundy dress? If protecting her costs me everything, Dante said coldly, then I'll burn it all down myself. Ward stared at him, disbelief mixing with anger. You're making a mistake, Moretti. No, Dante said, You made the mistake. 3 years ago when you let her get away. Tonight when you thought you could intimidate me. And right now by still being in my city. Ward's jaw clenched. This isn't over. It will be, Dante promised. Soon. He turned and walked back to the SUV, leaving Ward standing alone in the shadows. When Dante returned to the mansion, Sarah was waiting in his office, pacing. The moment she saw him, she ran to him, checking for injuries, for blood, for any sign he'd been hurt. I'm fine, he said, catching her hands. What happened? What did he say? Exactly what I expected. A man desperate enough to make threats he can't back up. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. He's not going to stop. He'll come after you. After your family. After everything you've built. And it's all because of me. Dante pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. Listen to me. Ward Reed was always going to be a problem. You didn't create this. You just gave me a reason to finish it. But what Sarah overheard later that night would reveal just how deep Dante's feelings really went, and how much he was truly willing to sacrifice. Later that night, Sarah couldn't sleep. She walked through the quiet halls of Dante's wing and heard voices coming from his office. She stopped outside the door, not meaning to eavesdrop, but unable to move. Dante's voice, low and rough. Every time she looks at me, I feel like I could actually be someone else. Cole's voice. What do you mean? She doesn't see the power. She doesn't see the empire. She just sees me. And that terrifies me because she makes me want things I should never want. Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth, her heart breaking and soaring at the same time. Before she could step away, the door burst open. Cole, his face grim. Boss, we've got a situation. One of our men was ambushed tonight, and there's evidence someone inside fed Ward our patrol routes. Dante's eyes went dark. A traitor. Looks like it. Sarah felt her world tilting. The danger wasn't just outside anymore. It was already inside. Dante's fury was controlled but absolute. He stood in the center of his office, surrounded by Cole, Victor, and 3 of his most trusted men. Maps and surveillance photos covered his desk. Find the traitor, Dante said, his voice deadly calm. I don't care how long it takes. I want to know who sold us out to Ward Reed. On it, Cole said. Dante turned to Sarah, who stood near the door, pale and shaking. You're staying in my quarters. Not the guest room, my room, where I know you're safe. Sarah's breath caught. Dante, I can't. You can and you will, he interrupted. This isn't negotiable. She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. That night, Sarah found herself in Dante's private suite, a massive space with dark furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a bed large enough for 3 people. She sat on the edge of it, feeling completely out of place. Dante entered an hour later, loosening his tie, exhaustion evident on his face. You should sleep, he said. I can't. He sat beside her, not too close, but close enough that she felt his presence. Ward sent another message, he said quietly. Sarah's stomach dropped. What did it say? I know what she saw, and I know what you're willing to lose for her. Choose wisely, Moretti. Sarah closed her eyes. You should let me go. Let me disappear again. It's the only way. No. Dante. No. He repeated, turning to face her. I don't abandon people I've chosen to protect, and I sure as hell don't hand them over to men like Ward Reed. But your empire? My empire doesn't matter if I can't protect one person who actually matters to me. Sarah's breath stopped. Dante reached out and took her hand. Tomorrow, we end this. Permanently. How? I'm done playing defense, he said. It's time to go on offense. What Dante was planning would either free Sarah forever or destroy them both. And Ward Reed had no idea he'd already lost. The next morning, Dante assembled his team. Cole spread maps across the conference table. Victor checked weapons. Nina worked frantically at her laptop. Ward's operating out of an old warehouse near the industrial district, Nina said. I traced his network. He's been moving money, hiding assets, preparing to run. Then we hit him before he can, Dante said. Sarah stood in the doorway, watching. I want to help. Dante turned sharply. No. I'm the reason for this war. I should... You didn't start this, Dante said firmly. Ward did. You survived him. That's what matters. But I could testify. I could tell the police everything I saw. Maybe that would get you killed, Dante interrupted. No. You're staying here. Sarah stepped forward. You can't protect me forever. At some point, I have to stand up. Not today, Dante said, his voice final. Today, I handle this. Cole cleared his throat. Boss? If we're taking Sarah with us... We're not. Then at least let her stay in the SUV with Victor. If something goes wrong, she's close enough to evacuate. Dante was silent, clearly conflicted. Sarah met his eyes. I'm not letting you walk into danger alone. Not after everything. Dante's jaw clenched. Finally, he nodded once. Fine. But you stay in the vehicle. You don't move. You don't get out. Understood? Yes. As they prepared to leave, Dante pulled Sarah aside. He took her hand, his grip firm. I don't lose what's mine, he said quietly. Sarah's voice trembled. Am I yours? His answer was simple, fierce, devastating. From the moment I chose you. Yes. 3 black SUVs rolled through the city as night fell. Dante sat beside Sarah in the middle vehicle, his hand resting on hers. Cole drove. Victor followed in the vehicle behind them. Sarah stared out the window, watching the city lights blur. What happens if this doesn't work? It will work, Dante said. But what if... He turned to her, his expression intense. Sarah, I've been preparing for this my entire life. Every threat, every enemy, every war. This is just another one. Except this time you're doing it for me. Yes. She looked down at their intertwined hands. I don't know if I'm worth all this. Dante lifted her chin gently. Let me decide what you're worth. They arrived at the warehouse district 20 minutes later. The buildings were abandoned, rusted, covered in graffiti. Perfect for illegal operations. Cole parked at a safe distance. Ward's crew is inside. At least 8 men. Maybe more. Dante checked his weapon. We go in fast. Contain the situation. Secure Ward. No unnecessary casualties. Victor appeared at the window. Ready when you are, boss. Dante looked at Sarah one last time. Stay here. Victor stays with you. If anything goes wrong... I know, she whispered. I trust you. He leaned in and pressed a brief, fierce kiss to her forehead. Then he was gone, moving through the shadows with Cole and the rest of his team. Sarah sat in the SUV, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. Victor stood outside, weapon ready, eyes scanning the perimeter. Minutes felt like hours. Then gunfire erupted inside the warehouse. Sarah's hands flew to her mouth. Oh God. Victor didn't move. Stay calm. The boss knows what he's doing. More gunfire, shouting, the sound of breaking glass. Then silence. Terrible, suffocating silence. Sarah couldn't breathe. Victor. What's happening? I don't know. What emerged from that warehouse would change Sarah's life forever, but not in the way she expected. The warehouse doors burst open. Cole appeared, dragging someone. A man in handcuffs, blood on his shirt. Then Dante emerged, unharmed, walking with the controlled fury of a predator. Behind him, Ward Reed stumbled forward, also in cuffs, flanked by two of Dante's men. Sarah's breath rushed out in relief. Dante approached the SUV and opened the door. It's over. Sarah climbed out shakily. Are you hurt? No. She looked past him at Ward, who glared at her with pure hatred. Dante stepped between them, blocking Ward's view. Don't look at him. Look at me. Sarah met Dante's eyes. You're safe, he said. You're finally safe. Dante didn't waste time. He had Ward and his men loaded into separate vehicles. But before they left, Dante walked Sarah into the warehouse, past the broken crates, the scattered weapons, the evidence of the brief but brutal fight. In the center of the space, Nina had set up a laptop connected to external drives. This is it, Nina said, pulling up files. Everything Ward's been hiding. Financial records, shell companies, offshore accounts. And this... She played a video. Security footage from 3 years ago. The alley behind the restaurant. Ward Reed shooting a man twice in the chest while 2 others held him down. Sarah's knees went weak. Dante caught her. That's admissible evidence, Nina said. Clear video, clear audio, his face, his voice, everything. Dante turned to Ward, who stood surrounded by armed guards. You wanted insurance? So did I. The difference is mine actually works. Ward's face was pale. You can't. I can, Dante interrupted coldly. And I will. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Send it to every prosecutor, FBI agent, and journalist in the state. Now! Nina's fingers flew across the keyboard. Ward lunged forward. You bastard! You'll destroy me! That's the idea, Dante said. Cole stepped in, restraining Ward. The choice Dante gave Ward next would prove that sometimes justice isn't about revenge. It's about giving someone a chance to disappear before the consequences catch up. Dante turned to Sarah. You have a choice. You can testify against him. Put him away for the rest of his life. Or, Sarah whispered. Or I give him a different option, Dante said, his eyes never leaving Ward. He leaves the country. Permanently. Disappears. And if he ever comes back, if he ever even thinks about you again. His voice dropped. I hand the evidence over anyway. Ward was breathing hard, rage and fear mixing on his face. 48 hours, Dante said. You have 48 hours to get out of the country. After that, the evidence goes public whether you're here or not. Ward stared at him. You're letting me go? I'm giving you a chance to run, Dante corrected. Which is more than you gave Sarah. Ward looked at Sarah one last time. This isn't over. Dante stepped forward, his voice lethal. Yes, it is. Cole and Victor escorted Ward out of the warehouse. Sarah stood in the center of the space, surrounded by broken glass and evidence of violence, and felt something break inside her. Not fear, not panic. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. She turned to Dante, tears streaming down her face. You didn't have to do this. You didn't have to risk everything. Yes, I did, he said simply. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her as she sobbed into his chest. You're safe, he whispered. You're finally safe. Back at the mansion, Sarah was exhausted, emotionally drained. Dante guided her to his private quarters and sat her on the edge of the bed. "Rest," he said gently. "I don't think I can." He knelt in front of her, taking her hands. "Sarah, you've been running for 3 years. You've been afraid for 3 years. That's over now. Ward is gone. The evidence is secure. You don't have to hide anymore." "I don't know how to be anything else," she admitted. "Then I'll show you," he said. She looked at him through tears. "Why? Why did you do all this for me?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, pulling her up with him. "Because from the moment you walked into that wedding," he said, "I couldn't look away. You commanded attention without trying. You survived horrors without breaking. And you looked at me like I was just a man, not a title or a throne." Sarah's breath caught. "I've spent my entire life building power," he continued. "But you made me realize that power means nothing if I can't protect the people who matter." "And I matter?" she whispered. "You matter more than anything," he said. He cupped her face gently. "I didn't risk everything. I chose what mattered. You." Sarah closed her eyes, letting his words sink in. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. 2 weeks later, everything had changed. And yet, for the first time in years, nothing felt uncertain. 2 weeks later, Sarah stood on the balcony of Dante's private quarters, watching the city lights flicker below. The night was cool, peaceful. Everything felt different now. She wasn't a maid anymore. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't invisible anymore. She was Sarah Winters, and she was choosing to stay. Dante stepped onto the balcony behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Everything," she said. "How different my life is now. How different I feel. Good different or bad different?" "Terrifying different," she admitted. "But good." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "I heard from Nina today. Ward boarded a plane to South America. He's gone." Sarah exhaled slowly. "It's really over." "It's really over." She turned in his arms to face him. "I don't know how to thank you for everything you've done." "You don't have to thank me," he said. "You just have to stay." "I'm not going anywhere," she promised. Dante smiled. A real, genuine smile. "Good. Because I have plans for you." "Plans?" "I want you beside me. Not as my maid. Not as someone I'm protecting. As my partner. My equal." Sarah's breath caught. "Dante, I know it's fast," he said. "I know this isn't conventional, but nothing about us has been conventional from the start." "No," she agreed, laughing softly through tears. "It hasn't." He took her hand. "You walked into that wedding in Burgundy and shocked everyone. You survived a man who wanted you dead. You stood beside me when you could have run. And somewhere in all of that, you changed everything." Sarah looked up at him. "You changed everything too. You made me feel like I mattered, like I was worth fighting for." "You are worth fighting for," he said fiercely. "You always were." They stood together on the balcony, the city sprawling below them, the future stretching ahead. Inside the mansion, Margaret Sullivan watched from the window, smiling quietly. In the grand sitting room, Isabella Moretti sat with Lucas and Sebastian, sipping wine. "I was wrong about her," Isabella admitted reluctantly. Lucas grinned. "Took you long enough to admit it." "She's good for him," Sebastian added. "I've never seen Dante like this. Human." Isabella nodded slowly. "Perhaps he chose better than any of us realized." Far below, in a different city, In a different country, Ward Reed boarded a plane, knowing he'd lost everything. Lost his power, lost his leverage, lost to one woman who refused to be silenced and one man who refused to let her stand alone. Back on the balcony, Sarah rested her head against Dante's chest. "I used to think I was cursed," she said quietly. "That everyone I got close to would suffer because of me." "And now?" Dante asked. "Now I think maybe I was just waiting to find someone strong enough to stand beside me. Not for me, beside me." Dante tightened his arms around her. "I told you that first night. When you walk on my arm, you're under my protection. That hasn't changed." "But I'm not on your arm anymore," Sarah said, looking up at him. "I'm in your life." "Yes," he said. "You are, and you're staying there." She smiled. "Forever?" He kissed her softly, gently, promising. "Forever." And as they stood together overlooking the city, the Mafia boss and the maid who shocked everyone, Sarah realized she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. She was loved. She was home. If you felt something while watching, please subscribe. That's how I know these stories mean something to you, even on your TV. Take a second to join our community of story lovers. Your support keeps this world of emotions alive.